We're at 140. Siva, Vimachilaren. I apologize. I know I butchered that. Sorry. Vima? No? Okay, not seeing Vima. We're going to 141. Gerard White. Or Gerald White. Gerard White. Okay, we're going to 142. Laura Hesplin Piper. Laura, you've got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm a 9th-generation Torontonian, and I love the city. And I have to say, I've been really impressed at the turnout from everyone and the stamina of everyone. But I've been really appalled at how these proceedings have gone on and the blatant attempts to try and get Torontonians to not have their voices heard. It didn't work. We're still here. I've been volunteering at Toronto Animal Services South Shelter for 3 years now, and in that time I've become heavily involved in small animal rescue in Ontario. I'd like to explain why Animal Services is a vital part of this city and why it must remain public and well-funded. I encourage you to review the many services TAS provides the city. They maintain the city's health by picking up dead and injured animals. They maintain the city's safety by responding to dog bites and animal complaints. And they maintain the city's humanity by ensuring that our unwanted animals are not simply destroyed. There is no other organization in the GTA that does this. As shelter volunteers, we've started a petition to keep TAS public and received 900 signatures in 3 days, and it's growing. Torontarians care about this. Eliminating pet licenses was one of the proposed options by KPMG. But of the 10 largest cities in Canada, all 10 require dogs to be licensed, and 18 of the 20 largest cities in the United States. If enforced, licensing can fund public shelters, as it has in Calgary, a city often held up as the gold standard in animal control. One of the options proposed by KPMG was privatization. It's financially impossible to run a humane shelter and turn a profit. Think of the cost of one cat. You have to feed, house it, provide veterinary care, spay and neuter. An adoption fee will never cover this. The only way a shelter can turn a profit is to accept donations and euthanize everything. We can see this in Montreal, where their private shelter, Berger Blanc, has recently been exposed by CBC's undercover footage to be cruel and inhumane. Untrained employees were euthanizing animals improperly and leaving them thrashing in agony in cages as they died. Mr. Ford, are you listening? Because you don't seem to be. About 2% of cats in Montreal were reunited with lost owners, and adoptable animals were killed improperly rather than have any money go towards promoting adoption. I challenge all councillors to watch that footage online. It's disturbing. See if you can still vote to privatize TAS. Calgary has public animal control, which is financed fully by their pet licensing. And they are regarded as the most successful animal services in North America. We should follow their example and not Montreal's. On a personal note, I cannot express the pride I feel in my city that we have an animal shelter like TAS South. We bring dogs from high-kill areas that would otherwise be killed, and they get adopted within a week. I'm currently fostering baby rabbits that if TAS hadn't rescued, they'd be dead.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Doucette, you have a question? You got 1 minute question?
Good morning. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Yes, I was at that committee meeting. Was it last week? I can't remember times.
Yeah, I believe so.
Where that horrific video of Montreal was shown, and to be honest, it turned my stomach. I know we had one...
I believe the video had to be turned off.
Well, we had one resident who ran out of room in absolute tears. So my question is, and I know your answer, obviously privatization or cutting funds to what we have now is not the way to go.
If we privatize, we are guaranteeing that Toronto's animals will be treated cruelly and probably put to death. I actually invite all the councillors to go visit our public shelters, see the wonderful work we do before you think of privatizing or cutting the services.
Thank you.
Councillor Barnetti, 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Speaker, thank you for coming. I've seen the Berger Blanc video way before it came to this committee. Yeah. So I've been following all of these videos and what happens within this industry. And I've worked with Toronto Animal Services and the Toronto Humane Society. Toronto Animal Services does have a high euthanasia rate. And that should be
Well,
considered
what has
as
to be understood about TAS's euthanasia rate is that they also offer low-cost euthanasia to the public for people who might not be able to afford to put their suffering animals out of their misery. And we are also obligated by law to do court-mandated euthanasia, so that does increase our euthanasia rate. Also, we are the only open missions shelter in the GTA that has to take in every animal that comes to us, no matter what its state. Every other shelter can turn animals away, but we can't. Because of us, there are many less strays than there would be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you very
time.
much. Marm Bronell, if I pronounced that wrong, I apologize. Marm, no? No. Okay, we're going to go to 144. Aaron Sidney Wright. Aaron, okay. Aaron, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm a PhD student and a teaching assistant at the University of Toronto, but I'm coming here to speak to you as part of a family in Ward 14 with Cesar Palacio, my counselor. And I have 2 suggestions, one of which you've heard before and one of which I don't think you have, for how to deal with the budget problems in the city. So the first thing is that you're wondering how to take the KPMG recommendations, and I agree, and I won't rehearse reasons why there should be caution taken here. I think that discussions about cuts have to happen in the context of discussions about revenues, which is why I think I'm here to tell you that you should raise taxes on my family, because we can afford it, to provide for people who are less fortunate. Because for us, value for our tax dollars is spending that supports our values, and we believe in that. The second thing I'd like to say is a suggestion that the City of Toronto and Mayor Ford act a little bit more like the Ford Corporation. Right? Because we know that when the Ford Corporation was worried about going bankrupt, the federal government found millions and millions of dollars for them. And I'm not just being facetious, right? Recently, Dalton McGuinty, right, was asked for $200 million by Ford because they started making some noises about the job security for the good union jobs at the Ford plant. And I would suggest using the good union jobs that the city provides as negotiating tools with the province, so that in this election, we have Dalton McGuinty committing to $200 million to keep those well-paying union jobs that contribute to their tax revenue, not our 6 cents on the dollar, right? They have an interest in making sure that we keep these jobs. That's it.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Avi Yale Go. I'm sorry if is that how you?
You should apologize. So
I do apologize. I don't know. That's how do you say it?
AVGO, and I'm the clinic director of the Metro.
No. It says.
Yeah, that's my full name. So it's
Okay.
easier for you to just say AVGO.
Okay, sorry,
And
but how do you pronounce your full name? So I'm.
AV Yao Go.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm the clinic director of the Metro Toronto Chinese and Southeast Asian Leo Clinic. And no, we do not receive any funding from the city. As you know, 50% of the city population are immigrants. About 47% identify as racialized community members. But as the city becomes more diverse, the inequities in the city has also become worsened, with widening gaps between the rich and the poor, and who are disproportionately racialized. And it is in this context that the city is now looking to cut its core services. The city is by no means the only government who is facing financial challenges, and this council took a, arguably reasonable first step by conducting an independent review of its core services. But as KPMG consultants themselves acknowledge, they are reviewing these services from a financial point of view only. So before making any final decision, the city must assess the potential impact on any cuts on the most vulnerable members of the Toronto area. To that end, the city must conduct an equality impact review of the proposed cuts. Last year, the Scottish Government commissioned an equalities budget review to look at the impact of reduced public services spending on vulnerable groups. Among other things, the review finds that equality groups are especially vulnerable to public spending cuts, not only because they are better represented in the public sector workforce, but also because they are significant users of public services. And this council, I submit, must conduct a similar equality budget review before implementing any core services cuts. And such a review is in fact mandated by the city's own policies. City's human rights and anti-racism policy anti-harassment policy states that every person has a right to equal treatment with respect to city services and facilities without discrimination or harassment. The same policy also gives every Torontonian the right to equal access with respect to occupancy of city-owned accommodation. This policy applies to City of Toronto personnel, including the councillor. By its vision statement on access, equity, and diversity, the city is also committed to create an environment of equality in the government and in the community for all people. The city's accessibility policy also commits the city to building an inclusive society and building an accessible environment to facilitate access to city services and programs. So in other words, the city is obligated by law and by its own policy to promote equality and not to engage in actions that will negatively impact on the disadvantaged communities. Cuts to core services will potentially affect the very population that this city is mandated to protect. So as such, the city must conduct an equality budget review to ensure that any cuts to services will not result in discrimination against any group, and that the cuts will withstand any legal challenge under the Human Rights Code.
Wong Tam, your question, you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So, AV, are you saying that based on the fact that the city might be contradicting our own human rights policies, that we are in danger of violating the Human Rights Code?
Right. The fact that you're turning a blind eye to that potential, you're relying solely on a report that specifically tells you they're not looking at the impact on the vulnerable groups. And you have your own policies, you have the Human Rights Code you're not following. And I think that you're really vulnerable to a legal challenge that I'm sure will be coming soon.
And AV, thank you very much. What would happen if the city lost such a legal challenge?
Well, first of all, you're going to spend a lot of taxpayers' money just to fight a challenge like that. So you might as well spend the money doing the review now, rather than spending money paying your lawyers to do it, to defend yourself.
And so would you be asking one of these executive members to carry forward a motion that would adopt the equity impact statement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perks, you have a minute.
Thank you. At the council meeting, when we voted on whether or not to establish this core review, there were motions asking for equity impact statements, environmental impact statements, and council voted them down. KPMG has said repeatedly, therefore, that any consideration of impacts beyond financial are outside the terms of the reference. Mm-hmm. Given all of that, do you think that the document we have before us is in any way an adequate mapping for how we should be delivering services in the City of Toronto?
No, not at all. And I think that you're setting yourself up because your consultants are telling you that they are not doing that review, and you have now people coming to you, like over 300 people are telling you now this is how their lives are going to be impacted, and yet you do nothing. I think you have a hard time defending yourself if this case goes to court.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.